The stars looked cold through the viewport of the colony ship. Commander Taesung pressed his hand against the glass and watched the Valthene warships circle. Havens rest like predators around wounded prey. Behind him, 50,000 colonists waited in silence, their faces pale with fear. The communication system crackled to life. A harsh alien voice filled the bridge. Human settlement, you will surrender immediately. Resistance will result in total destruction. Taesung closed his eyes. His colony had no weapons, no military ships. They were farmers, teachers, engineers. They had come to this world to grow food and build homes, not to fight wars. He reached for the communication button. This is Commander Taesung of Haven's Rest. We surrender. Please do not harm our people. The Valthene ships descended like falling meteors. Within hours, alien soldiers walked through the streets of the colony's main settlement. The Valthene were tall creatures with gray skin and 4 eyes that never seemed to blink. They carried weapons that hummed with energy, and they moved with the confidence of those who had conquered many worlds before this one. Captain Vorn stood in the central plaza and surveyed the gathered humans. His translator device turned his words into something the colonists could understand. You will cooperate. You will work. You will serve the Valthene Empire. Those who obey will live. Those who resist will not. The colonists nodded. They had families to protect. They would do what was necessary to survive. But then Vorn gave another order, and everything changed. Bring all human young ones forward. Ages 5 through 16. They will be transported to re-education facilities. A wave of shock rolled through the crowd. Mothers grabbed their children. Fathers stepped forward, hands raised in protest. Taesung felt his blood turn to ice. No, he said, stepping toward Vorn. You can take our crops, our technology, our labor, but not our children. Vorn's 4 eyes focused on him. You misunderstand your position, human. You have no authority here. The young will be educated in proper Valthene values. They will forget your primitive ways. This is mercy. We could simply eliminate the next generation entirely. Valthene soldiers moved through the crowd, separating children from their parents. The screaming started then. A mother named Yoonji fought 3 soldiers before they stunned her unconscious. A father named Dongwoo threw himself at Vorn and was shot dead on the spot. 12-year-old Hana held her little brother Junho's hand as soldiers pushed them toward the transport ships. She was crying, but she walked forward because she knew if she resisted, they might hurt Junho. 15-year-old Minho looked back at his parents one last time, trying to memorize their faces. 300 children were loaded onto the transports. The engines roared to life. Parents pressed against the barriers the Valthene had erected, reaching for their sons and daughters as the ships rose into the sky. Taesung was on his knees, his hands bound behind his back. A Valthene guard stood over him, weapon ready. But Taesung was not looking at the guard. He was looking at the faces of the parents around him. They had stopped screaming. The change was sudden and terrifying. Where there had been grief and panic, now there was something else. Something cold and patient. The mother who had been unconscious was awake now, and her eyes were focused on the departing ships with an intensity that made Taesung shiver. He had seen that look before. Years ago, when he had served in the Human Defense Forces. He had seen it on the faces of soldiers who had lost everything and had nothing left but purpose. His second officer, Yuna, was bound next to him. She was young, barely 30, but she had also served in the military. She caught his eye and gave the smallest nod. Taesung turned his head slightly, speaking softly so only she could hear. Send the signal. All of it. Every frequency. Yuna's fingers moved behind her back, working at the small emergency transmitter built into her uniform collar. It was designed for distress calls, but it would serve another purpose now. Within seconds, the message would bounce through relay stations across human space. The message was simple: Colony Haven's Rest. Conquered by Valthene. Empire. 300 children taken. Coordinates attached. Request immediate response. As the transport ships disappeared into the darkness of space, Captain Vorn turned to his troops. The humans are broken. This world is ours. Prepare for the next phase of occupation. He did not see the look that passed between the colonists. He did not understand the significance of their sudden silence. The Valthene had conquered 47 species over their long history, and they had learned that taking the young was an effective way to break a population's will to resist, but they had never conquered humans. Before Tae-Soong watched the last transport ship vanish beyond the atmosphere, he thought about his own daughter, safe on Earth, and about the 300 children now in alien hands. He thought about what humanity would do when they received the message. Then he whispered, so quietly that even Yuna almost did not hear, "They have no idea what they have just done." The Valthene soldiers began organizing the colonists into work groups. They planned supply chains and production quotas. They established communication networks with their command ships. They did all the things that conquerors do when they believe they have won. None of them noticed the small red light blinking on Yuna's collar as the message transmitted across the stars, carrying news that would change everything. Supreme General Krell had lived for 214 years. He had commanded fleets in 47 campaigns across the galaxy. He had seen civilizations rise and fall, had watched species submit or be destroyed, and had learned to recognize the patterns of conquest and defeat. But as he sat in his command chamber aboard the flagship Eternal Dominion, reviewing the latest reports, he felt something he had not experienced in decades. Pure, ice-cold fear. The report from Haven's Rest glowed on his holographic display. Captain Vorn had classified the operation as a complete success. The human colony had surrendered without significant resistance. Resources had been cataloged. Production facilities were being converted to Valthene use. And, according to Vorn's report, 300 human young ones had been transported to the re-education facility on Turthos Prime. Krell's four eyes widened. His three-fingered hand trembled as he reached for the communication controls. He opened a priority channel to Captain Vorn, but the connection failed. The transports were already too deep in Valthene space, heading toward Turthos Prime, beyond the reach of immediate recall. Krell stood and began pacing his chamber. His mind raced back 20 years to a memory he had tried to forget. He had been a junior officer then, assigned to observe a minor border incident. A pirate crew, not affiliated with any major power, had raided a small human transport vessel. The pirates had killed the crew and taken the cargo. But they had also killed 2 human children who had been traveling with their parents. Krell had watched from his observation post as the humans responded. Within 18 hours, 3 entire human battle groups appeared in the sector. Not one ship, not a small task force. 3 full battle groups, including carriers, destroyers, and support vessels. The humans did not send demands. They did not open negotiations. They did not threaten or posture. They simply located the pirate asteroid base and destroyed it. The attack was methodical and complete. Every pirate ship was hunted down. Every structure on the asteroid was reduced to molecular dust. When it was over, there were no prisoners, no survivors, nothing but debris and silence. Krell had filed a report about the incident. He had warned his superiors that humans exhibited unusual behavior when their young were threatened. But the report had been filed away, forgotten in the vast archives of Valthene intelligence. Now, standing in his command chamber, Krell understood that history was about to repeat itself. But this time, It would not be a minor incident in an empty sector. This time, the Valthian Empire itself had taken human children. He activated the emergency communication system and opened a channel to the High Council. The faces of 5 council members appeared in holographic form before him. "General Krell," said Council Leader Thane, her voice sharp with irritation. "This had better be important. We are in session discussing the expansion into the Corval sector." Krell did not waste time with formalities. "We must return the human young ones immediately. This is not a request. This is a matter of survival." The council members stared at him in silence. Then Thane laughed, a harsh sound that echoed in the chamber. "General, you disturbed the High Council to discuss prisoners from a minor colony world? Have you lost your tactical sense?" Krell felt anger rising in his chest, but he forced himself to remain calm. "I have studied humans for 20 years. They are not like other species we have conquered. They have a cultural obsession with protecting their young. When human children are harmed, their response is not proportional. It is absolute." Councilmember Vex leaned forward, his expression skeptical. "General, we are the Valthian Empire. We have conquered 47 species. We have crushed rebellions on 100 worlds. These humans are primitives with limited faster-than-light technology. What can they possibly do to threaten us?" Krell activated his personal database and projected data into the holographic space. 60 years ago, humans made first contact with galactic civilization. At that time, their technology was centuries behind ours. Now, look at this data. They have closed the gap. Their weapons match ours. Their ships are faster. Their tactics are innovative. Do you know why they advanced so quickly? The council waited. Because every species that attacked them became their testing ground, Krell continued. The Korvax raided their outer colonies 15 years ago. Within 5 years, humans had reverse-engineered Korvax shield technology and improved it. The Drelm launched 3 small wars against human expansion. Each time, the humans learned. They adapted. They took every weapon used against them and made it better. Thane waved a dismissive hand. "Interesting history, General, but irrelevant. The humans are contained. They have no fleet in this sector. By the time they respond, we will have fortified our positions and integrated their colony into our empire." Krell felt desperation clawing at him. "You are not listening. This is not about territory or resources. This is about their young. I witnessed their response to a pirate crew that killed 2 human children. 2. They deployed 3 battle groups and annihilated everything. Now we have taken 300. What do you think they will do?" Councilmember Drath spoke for the first time. "Even if they do respond with force, we have defensive positions, fleet superiority in this sector, and the element of preparation. We will negotiate from a position of strength." "Humans do not negotiate when their children are involved," Krell said, his voice rising. "They do not accept compromises. They do not show mercy. They simply remove the threat, completely, permanently." Thane stood, signaling the end of the conversation. "Your concerns are noted, General Krell. However, the High Council does not make decisions based on fear. We will not show weakness by returning prisoners. The humans will learn to accept their place in the galaxy, just as all other species have." The holographic connection terminated. Krell stood alone in his chamber, staring at the empty space where the council had been. He knew what was coming. He had seen it before on a smaller scale. The humans would not send diplomatic protests. They would not threaten sanctions. They would come with everything they had, and they would not stop until their children were returned. Krell made a decision. He could not change the minds of the High Council, but he could prepare. He opened secure channels to his most trusted officers and began issuing quiet orders. Begin evacuating non-military Valthene populations from border worlds. Move civilian transports away from probable human approach vectors. Prepare medical facilities for casualties. Then he opened one more channel, this one to the Emperor himself. It was a breach of protocol to bypass the High Council, but Krell had run out of options. The Emperor's face appeared, ancient and wise. General Krell, this is unusual. Krell bowed his head. Sire, I have served the Empire for 200 years. I have never asked for a personal favor, but I ask now. The High Council has made a grave error. They have taken human young ones. I beg you to order their immediate return with formal apologies. The humans might, possibly, show mercy if we act now. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of tradition. General, I understand your concern, but the Empire cannot show weakness. If we return the prisoners now, every species will see it as a sign that we can be intimidated. We must stand firm. The connection ended. Krell sat down slowly. He opened his personal logs and began recording. If the Empire survived what was coming, someone would need to understand what had happened and why. In his log, he spoke clearly. Today, the Valthene Empire made a fatal error. We took the children of a species that values their young above all else. We mistook their restraint for weakness. We believed our military superiority would protect us. We were wrong. What comes next will not be a war. It will be an extermination. And we will have earned it. He closed the log and sat in the darkness of his chamber, waiting for the storm he knew was coming. 72 hours had passed since the children were taken from Haven's Rest. In those 3 days, humanity transformed from a scattered collection of colonies and homeworlds into a single, focused weapon pointed at the heart of the Valthene Empire. Admiral Hyan Wu stood before the United Earth Assembly, his uniform crisp and his face carved from stone. Behind him, holographic displays showed the faces of the 300 children. Among them was his own niece, little Hana, her smile frozen in a photograph taken 3 months ago. The assembly hall was silent. Representatives from every human world sat in their seats, watching the Admiral. No one spoke. No one needed to. The Valthene Empire has committed an act that cannot be forgiven, Hyan Wu said, his voice steady and cold. They have taken our children. Every military asset, every reserve unit, every experimental weapon system will be deployed. This is not a negotiation. This is not a demonstration. This is total war. We will bring our children home, and we will make certain that no species ever makes this mistake again. The vote was called. It took 17 seconds. The result was unanimous. Total War Protocol was activated. Across human space, military bases erupted into activity. Ships that had been in dock for repairs were pulled back into service. Crews that had been on leave were recalled. Weapons that were still in testing phases were loaded onto carriers. In the orbital shipyards above Mars, Captain Daehyun stood on the bridge of the Silent Vengeance, watching his crew prepare the experimental stealth carrier for combat. The ship had never been tested in actual warfare. Its systems were new, untried, and potentially unstable. But Daehyun had volunteered immediately when the call went out. His daughter, Sujin, was one of the children taken from Haven's Rest. His first officer, a woman named Baora, approached him quietly. Captain, engineering reports the stealth systems are still showing some instability. They recommend at least another month of testing. Daehyun did not take his eyes off the viewport. We launch in 6 hours. Tell engineering to do what they can. Baora hesitated, then nodded. She understood. Every person on this ship had volunteered for the same reason. They all had family among the taken, or they knew someone who did. Or they simply understood that this was the line that could not be crossed. Across the solar system, The colonies were contributing everything they had. The mining outposts in the asteroid belt donated their entire stockpile of fusion charges, enough to power a fleet for a year. The research stations opened their classified databases, uploading weapons designs that had been considered too dangerous to deploy. On Europa Station, a young civilian engineer named Young Hee presented her proposal to the military committee. She was 26 years old, with dark circles under her eyes from 3 days without sleep. Weaponized warp drives, she explained, pointing to holographic equations that filled the air around her. If we remove the safety limiters and detonate a warp core in a specific way, we can create a cascading space-time collapse. It would destroy everything in a 10-kilometer radius and leave that section of space unusable for months. The committee chairman stared at her. Has this ever been tested? No, sir. The calculations suggest it would work, but the risks are enormous. If the collapse spreads beyond the intended radius, it could tear a hole in space-time itself. How many can you build? Young Hee blinked. You want to actually build them? How many? She swallowed hard. Give me the resources, and I can have 50 ready in 48 hours. You have whatever you need. Get started. On Terthos Prime, deep in Valthene space, the 300 children were held in what the Valthene called a re-education facility. The buildings were clean and well-maintained, but they were still a prison. Instructor Vess walked through the halls, observing the young humans. She was troubled by her assignment. The Valthene High Council had ordered her to begin teaching the children Valthene language and culture, to make them forget their human heritage. But as she watched them, she saw nothing that needed correction. The children were intelligent. They were cooperative. They helped each other and showed kindness to the younger ones. Vess had educated the young of 7 different conquered species, and she had never seen children behave with such maturity. In one of the common rooms, Hana sat with her brother Junho and their friend Minho. She was watching everything, memorizing the patterns. Which guards came on duty when? How many cameras covered each corridor? Where the exits were located? They will come for us, she whispered to the others. We just have to be ready. Minho nodded. He was older, almost 16, and he had been studying the guard rotations too. How do you know they will come? Hana looked at him with complete certainty. Because they always come. No matter what. That is what humans do. Back in human space, the fleet was assembling. 847 ships gathered at the rally point beyond Pluto's orbit. Carriers and destroyers, cruisers and support vessels. Experimental ships and old warships pulled out of museums and retrofitted for combat. Admiral Haiyan Wu stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Indomitable, and watched the fleet take formation. His tactical officer, a young man named Wu Jin, provided the final count. All ships report ready, sir. We have full crews and maximum munitions. The fleet is ready to proceed. Haiyan Wu nodded slowly. He thought about his niece Hana, about all the children being held in that Valthene facility. He thought about their parents, waiting on Haven's Rest and on Earth, trusting him to bring their babies home. Open a channel, he said. All frequencies. I want everyone to hear this. The communication systems activated. His voice would be broadcast across every Valthene listening post, every ship, every planet in their empire. This is Admiral Haiyan Wu of the United Earth Defense Force. The Valthene Empire has taken 300 of our children. You have 96 hours to return them, unharmed, to Haven's Rest. If you comply, we will consider this a grave mistake and negotiate terms. If you do not comply, there will be no Valthene Empire left to negotiate with. This is not a threat. This is a statement of fact. You have taken our children. You have 96 hours to return them. After that, we will come and take them back, and we will remove everything that stands in our way." He closed the channel. Around him, his bridge crew stood in silence. "Navigation," Hyun-woo said quietly. "Set course for Valthene Prime. Maximum warp. Activate Total War Protocol. We move in 1 hour." Across the fleet, 847 ships began powering up their faster-than-light drives. The energy signatures lit up sensor arrays across 3 star systems. Anyone watching would see the massive fleet preparing to move as one. On the silent Vengeance, Captain Dae-hyun checked the stealth systems one final time. The technology would allow his ship to slip past Valthene's sensors and strike from the shadows. He thought about Soo-jin, wondered if she was scared, if she knew he was coming. "Hold on, baby girl," he whispered to the darkness. "Daddy's coming to get you." In her facility on Terthos Prime, Soo-jin woke from a dream. She did not know why, but she felt a strange certainty settle over her. She looked out the window at the alien stars and smiled. "They are coming," she whispered and across the vast darkness of space, hundreds of human ships entered warp, their crews united by a single purpose. They were not coming to conquer. They were not coming to negotiate. They were coming to bring their children home, and nothing in the galaxy would stop them. The storm was coming, and the Valthene Empire had no idea how to survive it. 84 hours had passed since Admiral Hyun-woo's ultimatum. The Valthene High Council had not responded. They believed their military superiority would protect them. They believed the humans were bluffing. They were wrong about everything. The first battle began at the Korvax Gateway, a strategic choke point between human and Valthene space. The Valthene Third Fleet, 200 warships strong, waited in defensive formation. Their commander, Fleet Admiral Tan, was confident. The humans would have to come through this gateway, and when they did, the Third Fleet would destroy them. The human fleet emerged from warp space in perfect attack formation. 300 ships against 200. The Valthene had faced worse odds before. Admiral Tan opened a communication channel, intending to offer one final chance for surrender. But before he could speak, the human attack began. What happened next changed everything the Valthene thought they knew about warfare. The human fleet did not advance in traditional formation. Instead, thousands of small objects began launching from their carriers. At first, Tan thought they were missiles, but the sensor readings were strange. These objects were too small, too numerous. "What are those?" his tactical officer asked. They found out 3 seconds later. The objects were AI-controlled microships, each one no larger than a ground vehicle, each one carrying enough explosive power to damage a shield generator. They swarmed toward the Valthene fleet like angry insects, moving in patterns that no organic pilot could match. The Valthene ships opened fire, destroying hundreds of the microships. But there were thousands more. They slammed into Valthene shields, detonating on impact. Individually, the explosions did little damage. But collectively, they created gaps in the shield coverage, and through those gaps came the human main weapons. Lieutenant Ji-woo watched from her command post aboard the carrier, relentless as her swarm. Doctrine played out exactly as she had designed. The microships were expendable, cheap to build, and devastatingly effective at overwhelming traditional defenses. Second wave. Launch. She ordered calmly. More microships poured from the human carriers. The Valthene tried to adapt, tried to focus their point defense systems on the swarms, but that left them vulnerable to the human missile batteries. The battle lasted 34 minutes. When it ended, the Valthene Third Fleet was gone. 200 warships destroyed. The humans lost 27 ships. Admiral Tan died when his flagship exploded, never understanding what had hit him. The Valthene High Council watched the battle recordings in stunned silence. They had expected a conventional engagement. They had expected to demonstrate their military might. Instead, They had watched their third fleet be dismantled by tactics they had never seen before. Council Leader Thane stood, her face pale. How did they develop those weapons so quickly? No one had an answer, but the humans were not finished. While the main fleet advanced toward Valthene Prime, Captain Dehayan and the Silent Vengeance executed a different mission. The stealth carrier slipped past Valthene's sensor networks like a ghost. Its experimental cloaking technology bent light and energy signatures around the hull, making it effectively invisible. Dehayan brought his ship deep into Valthene space, to the shipyards where the Empire built its military vessels. "We are in position," his first officer Biora reported. 3 shipyards detected. Minimal defensive presence. They do not see us. Dehayan thought about Young He, the civilian engineer who had built the weapons his ship now carried. He thought about the risks she had warned about. Then he thought about his daughter Su Jin, held somewhere on Turthos Prime. "Deploy the warp bombs," he ordered. 3 packages launched from the Silent Vengeance, each one containing a modified warp core with its safety limiters removed. They drifted toward the shipyards on minimal thrust, undetected by the Valthene sensors. When they detonated, space itself screamed. The warp cores collapsed inward, creating cascading failures in the fabric of spacetime. The shipyards were not destroyed by conventional explosions. They simply ceased to exist, pulled into temporary rifts that consumed everything within 10 kilometers. Ships under construction, workers, defensive platforms, all of it vanished into nothing. The Silent Vengeance warped away before the Valthene could respond. Behind it, 3 holes in spacetime slowly closed, leaving only debris and radiation where the shipyards had been. On Valthene Prime, the High Council realized that they were not facing a conventional military operation. They were facing something new, something they had no defense against. That was when General Krell committed treason. He sat in his private chamber and opened a secure, encrypted channel. It took him an hour to locate the correct frequency, the one that would reach Admiral Hyan Wu directly. When the connection established, the human admiral's face appeared in holographic form. "This is General Krell of the Valthene military," he said without preamble. "I am sending you the exact location of the children and complete schematics of the facility on Turthos Prime. I am also ordering my personal fleet to stand down and withdraw from defensive positions." Hyan Wu stared at him. "Why would you betray your own people?" Krell met his gaze steadily. "Because I have seen what you are doing. You are not fighting a war. You are solving a problem. You are removing obstacles with the efficiency of a machine. You will delete my entire species from existence without hesitation, without anger, without mercy. You will do it as casually as solving a mathematical equation. I am trying to save what remains of my people. You understand that this is treason," Hyan Wu said. "Your own government will execute you for this." "If my government survives the next 48 hours, Krell replied, "then I will accept that fate. But I have served for 200 years, and I will not watch my entire species die because the High Council was too arrogant to understand what they had awakened." Hyan Wu was silent for a moment. Then he nodded. "Send the information. We will go get our children." The data transfer took 3 minutes. Floor plans, guard rotations, security systems, everything Krell could provide. When it was complete, he closed the connection and sat back in his chair, waiting for the consequences. On Turthos Prime, Instructor Vess was completing her evening rounds when alarms began blaring throughout the facility. She ran to the security center and found the guards in chaos. "What is happening?" she demanded. "Human ships," a guard gasped. "They appeared from nowhere. They are landing outside the facility. We need reinforcements." Vess felt ice in her veins. She had seen the children, had watched them help each other, had heard them speak with such certainty that their people would come. She had not truly believed it would happen. Commander Taesung led the first wave of the rescue force. He had been freed from Haven's Rest by the human fleet and had volunteered immediately for the extraction team. Captain Yuna was with him, along with 200 Special Forces soldiers. They hit the facility like a storm. Doors that should have been locked opened easily, thanks to Krell schematics. Security systems that should have detected them were offline. The Valthene guards, confused and overwhelmed, barely had time to raise their weapons. Taesung moved through the corridors with practiced efficiency, his weapon ready. But he did not need to fire. The guards were surrendering, throwing down their weapons and raising their hands. He reached the main holding area and found Instructor Vess standing in front of the cell doors. She looked at him with eyes full of fear and resignation. "Please," she said quietly, "do not hurt them. They are only children." Taesung lowered his weapon slightly. "We are here for our children. Stand aside." Vess stepped away from the controls and opened the cells. The children poured out, running toward the human soldiers. Hannah grabbed Junho's hand and led him forward. Minho followed close behind. Captain Daehyun landed with the second wave. He entered the facility and heard a voice calling his name. He turned and saw Sujin running toward him, her face streaked with tears. He caught her in his arms and held her tight. "I told them you would come," she whispered against his chest. "I told them humans always come." Within 20 minutes, all 300 children were accounted for. 0 casualties. The extraction teams loaded them onto transport ships and prepared to depart. Taesung found Instructor Vess sitting in a corner, her head in her hands. He approached her slowly. "You opened the cells without being forced," he said. "Why?" She looked up at him. "Because I have been teaching young ones for 40 years, and I know innocence when I see it. Your children did nothing wrong. They did not deserve this. I helped you because it was the right thing to do." Taesung nodded. "Then you should leave this planet. When we are finished here, there will not be much left." The children were safe, secured aboard human ships and heading back to Haven's Rest. But Admiral Hyun-woo did not call off the attack. The fleet continued its advance toward Valthene Prime. The children were safe. Transport ships carried them back to Haven's Rest, where their parents waited with tears of relief and joy. But in the cold darkness of space, the human fleet did not stop its advance. For 72 hours, Admiral Hyun-woo and his forces moved through Valthene space like a scalpel cutting out diseased tissue. Every military installation was targeted. Every shipyard was destroyed. Every weapons platform was reduced to scrap metal floating in the void. The Valthene tried to fight back. They sent their remaining fleets, their best commanders, their most advanced weapons. Nothing worked. The humans adapted to every defense, countered every tactic, and moved forward with relentless efficiency. Captain Daehyun and the Silent Vengeance destroyed 6 more shipyards using Younghee's warp bombs. Lieutenant Jiwoo's swarm doctrine devastated 3 more Valthene fleets. The human forces were not just winning. They were demonstrating such technological and tactical superiority that resistance seemed pointless. On the 8th day, human ships entered orbit around Valthene Prime itself. The homeworld of the Empire, the seat of power that had stood for 800 years, was now surrounded by the very species they had tried to subjugate. Admiral Hyun-woo sent a simple message to the planet below. The Valthene High Council will surrender immediately and prepare to face trial for war crimes. You have 1 hour to comply. The Council had no choice. Their fleets were destroyed. Their defenses were gone. They transmitted their surrender at the 58-minute mark. Human Marines landed at the High Council fortress. Council leader Thane stood with her fellow council members, their heads bowed in defeat. They were taken into custody without incident. The Emperor, ancient and frightened, surrendered his authority to Admiral Hyan-Wudad, but the real decision was still to come. General Krell requested a meeting with Admiral Hyan-Wu aboard the human flagship. He arrived in a small transport, unarmed and alone. When he stepped onto the bridge of the Indomitable, he found the Admiral waiting for him. "You helped us save our children," Hyan-Wu said. "I want you to understand that we will remember that." Krell nodded slowly. "What happens now? Will you exterminate us? We would deserve it." Hyan-Wu gestured to a viewport showing Valthene Prime below. "That is what I need to decide. Come with me." They walked through the ship to an observation deck. Other human officers were there, including Captain Daehyun, Commander Taesung, and Lieutenant Ji Woo. They all watched as the Admiral explained his dilemma. "We have the power to destroy your entire species," Hyan-Wu said bluntly. "Every one of my officers has recommended complete destruction of all Valthene military capability and the occupation of your worlds. Some have suggested much harsher measures." Krell waited, his 4 eyes steady. "But that is not who we are," Hyan-Wu continued. "We did not come here to become monsters. We came to protect our children. Now that they are safe, we have to decide what kind of galaxy we want them to grow up in." Over the next 3 weeks, preparations were made for the trial. But Admiral Hyan-Wu did something unexpected. He invited representatives from 12 other species to witness and participate in the proceedings. The Korvax, the Drone, species that had their own conflicts with humanity in the past, all sent observers. The trial was held aboard a neutral station, watched by billions across the galaxy through broadcast feeds. The Valthene High Council stood accused of war crimes, specifically the kidnapping of children during an act of conquest. Admiral Hyan-Wu himself presented the evidence. He showed the recordings from Haven's Rest, the children being separated from their parents, the transport ships carrying them away. He played the audio of parents screaming for their babies. Then he made his argument. "We fought to protect our children, not to become an empire ourselves. But this ends here. This practice of taking children, of using them as tools of conquest, must be eliminated from galactic civilization." The verdict was swift. The council members were found guilty. The sentence was handed down by a panel that included human judges and observers from other species. The Valthene Empire was dissolved. Military forces would be reduced to 5% of their previous size and monitored for 50 years. Reparations would be paid to Haven's Rest and other conquered colonies. The High Council members would serve life imprisonment for their crimes. Captain Vorn, the officer who had given the order to take the children, was sentenced to death for war crimes. The sentence was carried out 3 days later, but there was one person who received a different fate. General Krell was granted full immunity for his assistance in rescuing the children. More than that, he was appointed as the official liaison between humanity and the Valthene remnant populations. In a private meeting after the trial, Krell asked Hyan-Wu the question that had been troubling him. "You could have wiped us out completely. The entire galaxy would have understood. Why show mercy?" Hyan-Wu looked out at the stars. "Because our children are watching. My niece Hannah is 12 years old. She saw what we did to get her back. She saw the power we wielded. If we had chosen genocide, what lesson would that teach her? That might makes right? That anger justifies any action?" He turned to face Krell directly. "We rescue our children so they can live in a galaxy that still has hope, not just fear. But make no mistake, General. This mercy is a one-time offer. You need to spread the word to every species in this galaxy. Humanity will trade with you, cooperate with you, even die alongside you in mutual defense. But if you harm our children, there is no force in this universe that will save you." The message spread quickly. Other species heard about the week when humanity dismantled 800-year-old empire to rescue 300 children. They heard about the restraint shown after total victory. They heard about the new law that was proposed. 3 months after the trial, the Galactic Accord was formed. 27 species signed the agreement, with one central principle. Children of all species were off limits in any conflict. Any violation would result in immediate collective response from all signatory species. Humanity earned a reputation that day, not as conquerors, not as pacifists, but as the species that would cross any line to protect the innocent and then stop at exactly that line. 5 years passed. The galaxy changed in small but important ways. Hana graduated from the Galactic Naval Academy at 17, the youngest human to ever achieve that honor. She studied xenobiology and cultural relations, determined to build bridges between species. She never forgot what her people did to save her, but she also never forgot Instructor Vess, the Valthene who had opened the cell doors. Junho became a doctor specializing in trauma recovery. He worked with children from all species who had experienced the horrors of war, helping them heal and find hope again. Minho joined the diplomatic corps as a translator, using his skills to help different species understand each other better. On Haven's Rest, a memorial was built in the central plaza where the children had been taken. It was a simple stone monument with words carved in both human and Valthene script. To those who remembered that our greatest strength is not our weapons, but what we fight for. Captain Daehyun attended his daughter's graduation from the academy. Sujin wore her uniform with pride, and when she crossed the stage to receive her commission, her father stood and applauded with tears in his eyes. Instructor Vess, now teaching at a human Valthene cultural exchange program, told her students the story of that week. "I learned something that day," she said quietly. "Some species do not just defend their young. They define themselves by it. That is not a weakness. That is transcendent purpose. That is what makes them truly dangerous and truly admirable." General Krell, now old even by Valthene standards, sat in a bar at the edge of human space with Commander Taesung. They had become unlikely friends over the years, brought together by the shared experience of that terrible week. A young alien trader approached their table, curious and slightly drunk. "Is the story true?" he asked Krell. "Did the humans really dismantle an entire empire in 1 week?" Krell took a slow drink and nodded. "Yes, every word is true. But they had mercy," the trader pressed. "They could have destroyed everything." "They did have mercy," Krell agreed. "But here is what you need to understand, young one. They were holding back. They could have done it all in a day if they had wanted to. The week they took was them being careful, being precise, trying to minimize casualties even among their enemies." He leaned forward, his 4 eyes fixed on the young trader. "Remember this story. Remember what happens when you take their children. The humans will come for them. They will bring down empires. They will tear holes in space itself. They will do whatever is necessary. And then, if you are very lucky, they will show you mercy." The trader swallowed hard and left quickly. Taesung smiled slightly. "You enjoy scaring people with that story." Krell shrugged. "It needs to be told. Future generations need to understand what happened and why. The galaxy is safer because of what your people did. Not because you destroyed us, but because you showed that power and restraint can coexist." They sat in comfortable silence, 2 old soldiers from opposite sides of a war that had changed everything.